Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
You know that we share those sessions on the ECP, in the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. You have the list of our video conference, more than 100. And we will try. There is some, I think it's, yeah, probably it will be better if you put your mic off if you are not speaking, because there are some sound from the background. Okay, so welcome. This is the what we call the European Alliance Against Coronavirus. It's not only a forum of clusters or the European Commission, or it's open to everybody. We are collaborating, creating knowledge together in order to better fight the consequences of the COVID crisis. And this month we are focusing on how can we help to create better recovery plans, but also during this week we are thinking about the S3 strategies and the next phase on those strategies, and how can we increase the results. Okay, so this is the topic, and specifically for today we will speak about growth and competitiveness of SMEs, startup and scale up. And for that we have 4 excellent speakers that I want to welcome. First of all is Mikel Landavaso from the GRC. Later we will have Daniel Ax from the Union of Slovak Clusters, Isolin Roger Dalbert from DigiGrow, and Gabriela Macoviu from Romania at the ADR Northeast. So welcome everybody, and we will start without further delay with Mikel Landavaso. Thank you, Mikel, for joining us.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you to everybody being here. I think this is a very important moment, and this is what I was very happy when you invited me. I feel honored, and I think I would like to convey a very simple message. This is a unique historical opportunity. I'll try to explain why and what the Commission is trying to achieve. And in that sense, to what extent the smart specialization strategy, which is no longer RIS3, is RIS4. Not only because it's 4 in the time, the sequence of all these operations since the mid-90s, but also because the last S belongs to something called sustainability. So from now on, any RIS needs to be also aiming at sustainability in the direction of the Green Deal. This is what I'm going to be talking about RIS4. So in a nutshell, a historical opportunity. There is going to be a 1.8 trillion, or at least this is what we are negotiating as a budget. And within that, 750 million to promote economic development. And to do it in a particular way, because we are talking about a new word, or a word that is being used very frequently and wasn't there before, which is called resilience. And resilience is how do we make economies thrive in the face of adversity? How do we bounce forward in the direction of what we call the twin transition? So how do we bounce forward? How do we make this crisis an opportunity that changes the structures of our economies in the direction of the Green Deal, of sustainability, and by using intensely the opportunities opened by digitalization or innovation in a broad sense? So we are talking about 4 R's, if you want. We're talking about resilience, we're talking about recovery, and for recovery, we're talking about reform and renewal. So this is why this is a historical opportunity. And it is a historical opportunity for the RIS4, because how are countries and regions elaborate the necessary national, and I suppose regional in many instances, plans for resilience and recovery? filled with projects that reach the real economy. How do we mobilize the local entrepreneurial muscle to produce in a very, very short period of time good ideas for investment that take us in this direction I was mentioning, the twin transition? How do we capture in an intelligent way all these masses of money that will be coming forward through this time quick and I think intelligent strategic reaction of the European Union vis-a-vis this crisis? And this is in a way a rhetorical question, because if you look around, who can feed these plans? Who is going to tell the Spanish government within less than 2 months what is necessary? Because this is the time we have. By October, in this country, where I am now in Seville, the government of this country will be producing a plan, resilience and recovery plan, to be sent to Brussels. And there, my colleagues will be analyzing it in a very short period of time so that money starts flowing into the real economy by early spring, let's hope, to compensate this huge crisis. So who is out there that has a tradition of public-private partnership? Who is out there that has been trying to develop an entrepreneurial discovery process, a process of coordination and cooperation with the private sector to understand what are the key assets in a region, the potentials, the real potential that matches the research and innovation capacities in the region or nearby, with the companies that can carry a higher level of risk in their investments to modernize, to diversify the economy. Who has been working on this for years? Who has the experience of 40 billion euros for every single region in Europe? Greece 3 has never been intended as a straitjacket. It's been a methodology to be adapted to local conditions, where governance, meaning this private-public partnership, is key to the success, to the impact of this operation. I don't think there are many people around that can produce the right projects at the right time to carry the weight of the response to the crisis through innovation. Because that's another issue which is critically important, that offers a new opportunity for the RIS4, which is that without innovation, there is no Green Deal. And digitalization is almost by definition about innovation. So my main message, my first message is all those of you that are in a RIS3, 4 process are in a unique position to knock at the door of the national and regional authorities that are responsible for producing these recovery plans and say, we're here, we have the ideas, we've been working on the strategy, on the partnership with the private sector, we know where to invest. We are a small factory of innovation projects, but grounded on hard work realities. Because what risks happening? Well, there's a lot of money in the next year, in the next couple of years, coming from Europe to compensate the crisis that has hit very, very hard, but that has been asymmetric in the impact. That has hit very, very hard certain regions in the southern periphery in particular, but not only. Certain sectors, when you're talking about tourism, when you're talking about construction, when you're talking about retail, when you're talking about non-digitalization activities. And this has names, and small firms that have less capacity to resist and endure the huge demand gap that has hit us over the last few months. You know, this fall of 25% in the first quarter of new companies in Italy and in Spain is deeply worrying. The recent reaction, I think last week from France, promising 1 billion euros for new startups is a promising thing. We need to learn from each other, and we need to react very quickly. This asymmetric impact means that we need to have differentiated responses. And the RIS4, by its own nature, the governance structure and the entrepreneurial discovery process provides for that. This local muscle that takes into account the local firm dynamics and opportunities with this European directionality can feed these plans, should feed these plans. You miss this train, then many RIS3 will become simply a rhetoric exercise, a paper exercise. You need to catch this train. And you need to do the politics, the lobbying, which is necessary to be there at the forefront in the next few months before the end of the year. Because you can use this money very wisely in the sense that the Commission is proposing. So this is a real incentive for you to take over, to take this very seriously and to move. This is the time. This is now or never. RIS3 is never intended to be a beautiful aesthetic methodology for academics, for paper, for discussions. Is to change reality. Has to be messy, has to have some failures, because it will mean that it is taking the risks in the investments. This is necessary to promote innovation. So an open invitation to move fast. Otherwise, let me guess, after so many years running structural funds, there will be a long queue of ministries and regions and cities saying, where is my part? And instead of money following ideas, then we will have the money distributed and people will be asking for ideas quickly. Let's spend quickly now that we know who spends what. And who will be first in the queue? Well, not these messy projects for small companies, for clusters, which is a critical, essential part of the notion of the RIS4, a building block of this innovation ecology that we try to build, fertile ground for new ideas that diversify the economy. No, it's going to be people proposing more roads and more high-speed trains and more big infrastructures because they absorb a lot of money and the politicians touch them and they can inaugurate them. And these entrepreneurial, messy, risky, intangible, long-term projects that can provide the jobs of the future that we badly need, look at the effects of this crisis on employment, then will be at the end of the queue. More difficult to spend, more difficult to explain, and probably not so flashy, and definitely more risky. So please go ahead, speak up, lobby your authority, say this is an opportunity we cannot miss. Mobilize your forces, squeeze your brains, and really partner with the private sector and mobilize this local entrepreneurial muscle, because this is what will take us out of the crisis and in the direction that we are proposing, the digital economy in a very broad sense, and most importantly, the Green Deal, eco-innovation in a nutshell. So I'm going to shut up here because I don't want to confuse this key message I wanted to convey with any other consideration. And just to tell you that here in Seville, in the Joint Research Center, we have a good distillation of the lessons learned so far in this RIS3 journey, and you know that, and we have a number of interregional platforms that could be also very useful in this context of countering the COVID crisis, economic impact of the crisis. So Antonio, thank you very much. Just wanted to say this because you are the right audience to listen to this message. Thank you.
You are very welcome, Mikel, and I need to say that we are totally aligned and we received those messages with full agreement on them, and we will push, as you say, to be heard and to propose really excellent projects, ideas, and initiatives. And we are working on it, and we are very glad to have you, not only you, but all the speakers today and all the participants on this month's series thinking about that. So thank you, and we will hear more ideas about that just now with Daniel Ax, who is president of the Union of Slovak Cluster, also a very active member of the European Cluster Alliance. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Antonio. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mikel, for great presentation. I will now bring us to the reality, at least in Slovakia, with some my experiences. I had a presentation within the similar group of people a couple of months ago on role of clusters in green recovery of European regions. And since then, we have made a lot of effort to get in touch with our government. First, let me tell you that, Antonio, do you want to share the screen, or we don't need to share the screen, right? Anyway, let me start with basic elements. Slovakia is a small country, 5.5 million people, and we have 8 regions at NUTS3 level with quite limited competencies. So this means that each region is just something like 700,000 people. So there are small regions, and Slovakia has smart specialization strategy at the national level because it doesn't really make sense to go directly to regional level. And this was during the programming period 2014-20, and it looks it will be very similarly in 2021-27. However, it looks that regions that will have some more competencies in implementation of the smart specialization strategy in 2021 and 27, which will be a shift from the current programming period. At clusters, we are trying to work with both national level, which for the whole strategy is more relevant. Unfortunately, there has not been formed yet a stakeholders forum, but we are in discussions that Union of Slovak Clusters, or clusters it itself will be part of this stakeholders forum at the national level. And individually, some clusters who have very good contact with the regional governments are working at the regional level at their overall regional strategies that include innovation, but it will not be called smart specialization strategy. So I think that in the last about maybe 1-2 years, we have improved cooperation with the government. However, it is quite still difficult to explain policymakers how clusters are important, the whole process, like Mikel was just saying. And I hope that even this crisis will help to understand how clusters can help in the process. And I have to say that that the problem that we have at the national level is very often changing the system. So it means that if you change the system, mainly at the implementation level, then it's very difficult to be involved and to actually sustain economic viability, but also environmental aspects, and not even speaking about social inclusion. So just one example. In 2014, we were strongly involved in forming smart specialization strategy, which was, let's call it, full of clusters in terms of words. However, when we got into implementation, there was no hope until this year that clusters would be eligible at all. So one thing is to have a quite strong smart specialization strategy, including clusters, and the other thing is how it's being implemented. And this was because of the shift in the government, nothing else. However, I have to admit that now the situation is improving, and we have quite good relations with the government, and many times is just because of one person that is interested in discussing with it, or it's one department that is having open discussion with us, and that is enough to improve the whole ecosystem or environment, including involvement of clusters. One thing that Mikhail said was that many good people are around, and this is, I think, the most crucial for us, that those people should get together, and not only through clusters, but mainly through clusters, could interfere or could help to build the policies and implement the policies. Let me go further. I would have one example. Slovakia has no cluster policy at the moment. However, cluster policy is part of innovation policy, and there was very, very low support of clusters in the past. However, if we can go to the next slide, please. Slovakia has one gold cluster, which is IT Valley cluster in Košice, which is eastern part of Slovakia, and usually in this part of Europe, eastern parts are less developed than the western parts. And because of the cluster and cooperation with 2 universities and regional authorities and city of Košice, within 10 years they managed to put on labor market more than 12,000 young IT experts within that region. That means a big prevention of brain drain from this eastern part of Slovakia, either to capital of Slovakia, Bratislava, but they used to go also to Czech Republic, Germany, and even to US. So I think this is a great example how clusters, not only the clusters itself, but along with the cooperation with regional authorities, universities, can not only keep the employment, but also growth. So since this debate is about growth and employment, this is a great example how clusters could do it. Unfortunately, Slovakia doesn't have too many of such clusters, but this is a great example. Another potential example, if I can say, is that now IT Valley cluster was called by the government to work to support governmental IT systems. So I think that this is a real example of how the government can work closely with the clusters on different topics, not only with the small and medium businesses, but also on the governmental or state systems. And I mentioned that this year there was the first call for clusters in Slovakia launched, and within this call, I have to admit I'm quite pleased that there are new emerging clusters being established, and they are driven sometimes by value chain or even ecosystem, like, for example, bioeconomy cluster, cluster for cybersecurity, hydrogen cluster, battery alliance. So they are reacting quite fast to the current problems, current needs of the Europe. I would not even say Slovakia, because these are much broader than Slovakia can cover. So That would be probably all from my side in terms of some examples and how the system could work in Slovakia. And I have some questions maybe later, especially towards the recovery package. Thank you very much. And I thank you, Antonio, for having me opportunity to share my knowledge and experience with all of you. Thank you.
You are very, very welcome, Daniel. We are analyzing possibilities and realities, and it's good to have both in our hands. As you say, there are big capabilities, but they need to be recognized and facilitated. And as Mikel Landavaso said, we need to make now a strong movement of lobbying and explanation and convincing. So thank you. It's time now to hear Isolin Roger Dalbert from DigiGrow that will speak with us about Grow and SMEs. Welcome, Isolin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Do you want that I share your screen, your presentation, or would you prefer to do that?
As you wish.
I will give you the presentation rights. That will be probably better. And if you have any problem, we could, sorry, yes, because it's in the Roger.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just really to thank you actually for this invitation for this webinar. I see I can share my presentation. Let me.
Yes, we are seeing your desktop now.
So.
Perfect. Now it's totally right. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. So thank you very much indeed for the invitation. So I'm working in DigiGrow in the directorate which deals with the horizontal SME policy. So I'm myself more involved actually with activities of the Enterprise Europe Network and some SMEs innovation support measures in Horizon 2020. So my presentation will mainly focus on a brief overview on the new SME policy and some hints also on how national and regional actors can use various policy instruments to support SMEs. But on the later, I must say that I'm also really looking forward to hear your views. I just wanted to say that also I fully subscribe to Mikel's introductory points on also the challenge that are ahead, and I would like also to thank the previous presenter, Daniel Axe, for the very interesting presentation. I'm sure you all know the figures, but it's always worth repeating how SMEs are important in the EU economy. So Europe's 25 million SMEs are essential to Europe's competitiveness and prosperity, economic and technological sovereignty, as well as the economy's resilience. And we will see that resilience is really an important notion in the context of the recovery. So the figures you have concern the non-financial sector. So it's 99.8% of enterprises. The SME strategy actually was adopted on the 10th of March, and it was just before the COVID-19 crisis hit the EU with full force. Nevertheless, it is an important tool for post-crisis recovery. We could see that there has been a high-level recognition of the importance of SMEs, while also recognizing their diversity. So the strategy addresses all kinds of SMEs. So it ranges from, I would say, more traditional family-owned businesses to deep tech startups. This strategy actually also covers the recovery's main features, as was also mentioned by Mikel in introduction. So you have the sustainable transition with a green and social aspect, the digital transition, which is a key challenge ahead, and it will also help companies to build resilience. I also wanted to mention that this strategy builds on what already exists. So the 2008 Small Business Act remains extremely important, as well as a Startup and Scale-Up Initiative, which was issued in 2016. And of course, the various programs, such as the COSME program. We can mention also SME support action in Horizon 2020, and also extremely important, the European Structural Investment Funds, which have reached out to more than 1.4 million of SMEs. So as you can see, the strategy includes a mix of horizontal measures and more specific measures depending on the target groups. The key objective is really to unleash the power of SMEs to lead the twin transition to sustainability and digitalization. So it aims to increase considerably the number of SMEs engaging in sustainable business practices and employing digital technologies. So it's made of mainly 3 key pillars. The first one is on capacity building and support for the transition to sustainability and digitalization. The second one is on reducing regulatory burden and improving market access. It is still a huge issue for SMEs. I will show you later actually some recent data from the Eurobarometer. And another one is a well-known issue is on access to finance and closing the market gap. On digitalization and sustainability, there are some actually actions that are, I think, extremely relevant also for clusters and for the local support to SMEs. So, for example, the existing Enterprise Europe network will be upgraded with dedicated sustainability advisors and sustainability services. And to do so, they will have to work hand in hand with all local actors. Also to mention the important continuation of the support to EREC. On innovation, you may all know the European Innovation Council. A Green Deal call has been piloted in May with 300 million euros. And they have also introduced a target to support, for example, women-led companies. So at least 25% of women-led companies to be invited to the interviews. I would like also to mention the importance of digital innovation hubs. So no more than 240 digital innovation hubs to be established, with also strong collaboration with all actors to provide a seamless support to SMEs. And of course, the skills issue when it comes to the sustainability and digitalization transition, with a clear mention, of course, of the role of clusters, but also EEN in the new skill agenda. We also have to put it into the industrial and recovery context, because we all know that SMEs play a central role in European industrial ecosystems. So 14 of them have been identified as part of the industrial strategy. Here, clusters and other intermediaries, such as also EEN and other support business organizations, will have a key role to play to ensure SMEs access to innovation to ecosystems. Actually, we have recent data based on the 2020 Eurobarometer. So the reports are not yet published, so this is a kind of advanced information. But we can see that they confirm actually the most prominent problems that the strategy also wants to address, meaning in the field of regulatory obstacle and administrative burden. You may have seen that also in internationalization support that you provide to your members. Payment delays are also big issues, poor access to finance, and the lack of skills. Data shows that sustainability and digitalization are key issues also for SMEs, and they are crucial for the recovery period. And actually, we see that SMEs that are part of industry clusters and other business support organizations perform higher than the average SME when it comes to sustainability and digitalization, which is a good sign. I also wanted to mention the governance of the SME strategy. A full chapter has been dedicated to the governance. I believe it's here also very relevant for clusters and regional authorities because success in its implementation will depend on a robust partnership between the EU and member states. This also includes local and regional authorities because many of Europe's SMEs are deeply rooted in regional and local ecosystem. So we really need to work with all actors. You will see that the SME Envoy network is key for coordinating actions at EU and national level. So an EU SME Envoy will be appointed and will work in close interaction with all actors, including SME stakeholders. As for clusters, I understand that you could fall either in the part of business of organization, but also you have also to be in close contact with your national envoy because they are in charge of liaising with all relevant stakeholders at national levels. So you will have the slides afterwards, but I put also a link with all contact details and information. Let me also highlight some recent developments in light of the recovery. SMEs are supported indeed in many EU programs and EU policies. So it can be in the European Structural Investment Fund, as I mentioned, Horizon 2020, or COSME, and I just quote here a few. But I would like to highlight here the relevance of the recovery funds to support the implementation of the SME strategy. So REACT-EU and the Just Transition Fund will be important new instruments, as well as a recovery and resilience facility. So just to give one example, we could foresee that member states or region could scale up some SME support, for example, in the area of sustainability with cohesion policy funds. Coming in now into the more specific policy instruments which can be used at regional level, we know that needs and potentials of SMEs are not uniform. They differ strongly between the regions and actually types of firms, and thus they need really tailor-made solutions and policy offers. These are best developed with the appropriate input from SMEs and their intermediaries and support organizations. We have published some years ago 2 guides, which I believe could be useful to you when designing your SME support measures. I won't go into the detail because they really offer an excellent toolbox, actually, and they build on decades of experience. So the first one is on smart specialization strategies, and the other one focuses on internationalization of SMEs, and you will have access to the links with the presentation. Last but not least, I wanted to conclude this presentation to provide you with a practical example on how European institutions, regional authorities, and business intermediaries can successfully collaborate and implement the available policy instruments. I'm here referring to the Enterprise Europe network, which I know actually quite well. You may know it well, I think so, but to sum it up, it involves no more than 600 organizations in 60 countries to help SMEs to grow, innovate, and internationalize. So you can see also on the slides the typology of different services that are provided by EN organizations. So it ranges from advice on access to funding to partnering services and also dedicated innovation management capacity services. And we see here we had a recent survey that ENOS organizations are also closely working with ERDF, be it as managing authorities, intermediate bodies, or part of different monitoring committees. But the most important is that we see that more than 2/3 of EN teams help SMEs to access ERDF finance measures. So we have published also a guide which illustrates how EEN can work in synergy with ERDF programs. So collaboration synergies are of different kinds. So they can be part of the governance of the program. They can contribute to the design and implementation of ERDF programs or measures. They advise SMEs also on access to ERDF funding, as I mentioned. And last but not least, and I think it's quite interesting here, as they can enrich ERDF funded project with services, but also scale up actually EN services with EN funding. And I will finish with an illustration, which is a good case study to show how it can work, and a good collaboration between Styrian clusters and SFG. So this organization is a regional economic development agency of the Austrian state of Styria, and also a member of EN Austria. And as I mentioned, as part of the typology of services delivered by the network, there are specific innovation management capacity services. And in the context of ERDF funded projects, your EN organization supported Styrian clusters with innovation audits to enhance the innovation management capacity of their SME members. So there are plenty of other good case studies in the guide that has been published. And I would like also to mention that there will be also a specific workshop in the coming week of the cities and the regions, which might be also of interest to you. And time is over now, so I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I now turn to Antonio. Thank you.
You are very, very welcome, Isolin. Thank you. I am glad to see that you have contemplated cluster in your slides and in your policies, but we need to be more there. We need to be closer to you, and I am sure that we can really, really be more involved in your activities and in your policies. So that's a challenge, and we take it. Thank you. We will come back to you for sure. But now we will hear, I want to introduce Gabriela Mokabieu. Thank you, Gabriela, for joining us again, because you were with us on July, and it was a pleasure to hear you. I'm sure that you will enrich us with new ideas and references on what we are speaking about today. Should I give you the presentation rights, Gabriela, or would you prefer that I present?
Yes, thank you. Again,
Gabriela, probably you have two mics or something like that. Two microphones could be. There is a strong echo. I see that your mic is off in the PC, in the computer.
Can you hear me?
No, could you put your mic on in your computer? Let's check if we can activate.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now, yes. Could you put your speakers off?
Can you hear me now?
Now, far better. Now it's right.
Okay.
So please.
So if you can give me the possibility to share the screen.
Now, I think now you have it. If you have difficulties, I could share your presentation. I think I will prepare it.
I cannot hear you and I cannot share the screen. Something is happening, yes?
Okay. I will do it.
Can you instruct me how to proceed, because I cannot hear you and I cannot share the screen.
So now, go on, please. Right? Okay.
Okay, this is a presentation that
Yeah.
I just wanted to share with you. It seems that I would need your help, Antonio, to run the presentation. Please accept my thank you for inviting me in this workshop where I want to show you the case of catching up region, Northeast Romania, that is related to what we are doing this challenging year, where we have a lot of changes and a lot of things to take into account, not only to finish the implementation of the programs that are run for the actual programming period, but looking forward to what is coming next. Next slide, please. The important, like Michael said, it is now to set up the strategy in the context of the changes that are taking place. One of the big challenges for us was to develop the smart specialization strategy updated in 2020, taking into account the lessons learned in the exercise that we have run so far in the last 3 years. We have experienced already initiatives for implementing the smart specialization strategies. Some lessons were drawn related to the administrative capacity of the beneficiaries and the multitude of conditions that innovative projects has to fulfill before they come to the implementation. We were looking also very carefully to the evolution of the economy system and the innovation ecosystem in our region. There has been, of course, many changes, although the figures were looking good until the end of 2019. Then we had significant develop, let's say, backdraw in 2020. One an issue that appeared very clear was the need to consolidate the research and innovation offer, because here we still have infrastructures that are not properly linked with the industry, and the technology transfer system is not functional yet. Also, in respect to the entrepreneurial initiatives, we have to look closer in order to stimulate the appearance of new startups. One issue also very important, like our colleague in Slovakia said, was how to correlate the strategy, the ambition of our stakeholders with the conditions of implementation of the operational program from structural funds. And here we have two anchors. One anchor is the operational program of our region, and the other anchor is a national program for growth, digitalization, and financial instruments. And I will explain you why it is important to start even in the programming period to connect very closely with the logic of intervention of these two programs in order to see later our smart specialization strategy implemented. Another issue here very important in Romania is the multi-level governance of smart specialization, because now we have 8 regions for development, each with their own smart specialization strategies, and one strategy for smart specialization at national level. The connection between these two strategies is very important in order to ensure a good correlation of the areas of intervention, but also of the domains. Another big challenge was to update the composition of the micro ecosystems around the entrepreneurial discovery process in our region, and to run the ADP in 2020, even during the lockdown. This involved an effort from us to adjust the methodology of the entrepreneurial discovery process in such a way that the stakeholders can contribute with ideas and come with proposals to revalidate the smart specialization priority areas and niches. And you will see that there are some huge changes. Then we had to define the specific objectives and the investment needs for the smart specialization. And my colleagues, as my colleague said, lately, in the second part of 2020, our focus is on developing the new project portfolio for the smart specialization strategy. And here we were looking mainly to see where are the most significant and relevant projects envergure, like more than 1 million euro, and also to start as early as possible the project preparation phase. And we have a facility to assist the beneficiaries to prepare the technical documentation for the process, for the project. Next, please. Next slide, please. The smart specialization strategy in our region, of course, is connected with the clusters. The clusters has been involved in our strategic process from the beginning. Our organization has been facilitated the activation of clusters in 2011 in the region, because we are regional development agency. In the region, we have 11 clusters. Our clusters are including between, let's say, 22 and 47 members, but they are well established. They involve around 650 million euro annual turnover and more than 12,000 employees. There are two clusters which are members, bronze medalist of ESCA, Astrico, Northeast, and Imago Mall. And also we have clusters which are founders of the National Association of Clusters, Clustera in Romania. But what it is important, as you see here, behind each area for smart specialization, there is at least one cluster structure which is active and come with proposal about how the area can be developed. The role of the clusters in setting up the agenda of smart specialization, therefore, is important for us. There are in the areas of smart specialization is Northeast areas which, of course, has been strongly affected by COVID, like it has been mentioned here, tourism, but also health appeared on our map this year. And also, I'm glad to see that we have intuitively included also areas that are looking for the eco-innovation and sustainable development. So environment and energy. In environment, of course, is renewable energy efficient in energy. And in the environment, we have this cluster that is involving the building materials, and also there is a strong connection between these sectors and the smart specialization niches that has been identified ensures that there is a cross-sectorial approach. Next, please. Our stakeholders stated the vision of the smart specialization strategy that for the region, it is important to count on educated people and local products. And I think it is important, this message, and we are taking it into account. In the strategy, we, of course, are looking to stimulate the new startups and scale-ups, but also to support the existing SMEs to uptake the new technologies and innovate, create a more effective research and innovation offer, looking not only to infrastructures, but also to human resources, and invest in existing clusters. What is also important for us, it is to consolidate the international cooperation capacity of the region and the digital transformation and the capacity to properly implement and monitor the RIS3. And I will explain how we are connecting this. Next slide, please. With the agenda of the regional operational program. What is new this year is the fact that the regional development agencies are becoming managing authorities for the regional operational program. They are no longer intermediate bodies, so we have the unique chance to design a regional operational program much more tailored to the regional needs. Of course, our organization is important from planning and programming perspective because has the mandate to develop the regional development plan, but it also coordinates the smart specialization strategy. So, and above this, we had initiative that draw the first national strategy for entrepreneurial ecosystem. This will bring more cohesive initiative in respect to develop instruments to support startup and scale up. The ROP Northeast, of course, will have a generous allocation of the budget, 1.5 billion euro from European Fund for Regional Development. Out of each, 30% are allocated to objective priority number 1. This is important because this gives you the fact that the interest of the local authorities to support this policy objective is still high. So we are not going to go for 25%, but we want to keep 30% allocated to this policy objective. In this regional operational program, there will be 2 priority axes that are going to address innovation, competitiveness, and the digital transition. Like I said, you are going to see there are initiatives that are now unique, implemented at regional level, and other initiatives are going to be correlated from smart specialization strategy with national operational programs, like those for health, sustainable development, human capital, or next, please. The ROP has, for the specific objective 1, the innovation, some interventions that are proposed, reflecting the priorities also from the smart specialization strategy, which are looking to let's say, invest in those points of the innovation value chain that demonstrated that are not so strong at this moment. First of all, we are looking to investments and research and innovation projects that are very clearly linked to the needs identified in the entrepreneurial discovery process. Another issue is that we are going to work together with the research teams in order to support the preparation of commercialization strategies for research. Because this has been a link very sensitive that proved that influenced the connection that they can establish with the market and with the industry. The next, it is an intervention that allows to the SMEs to validate innovative concepts in their companies. Also, we want to boost the interregional cooperation of research and innovation with partners from Europe, and this is envisaged as let's say back-to-back intervention correlated with the initiatives of the smart specialization platforms, the KICS and the AET initiatives. And also, we want to bring closer to us the SMEs that receive Seal of Excellence in European program Horizon Europe. Of course, technology transfer, we have started the intervention in actual regional operational program. The infrastructures for technology transfer were developed, but now we are going to focus on supporting the SMEs which are investing technology transfers. For the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the experience showed us very clear that supporting development of business incubators and accelerators is important, but also we need to accompany these investments with the appropriate programs which are focusing on the first year of life from the idea to operational startup, and that this is where we are coming with a proposal. Next, please. Of course, we have accommodated in our regional operational program the clusters development. And here, what we are looking for is to support investments for developing new industrial activities that are identified as missing links in their value chain. It is clear for us that are particular in each industry, there are particular links that are affected by COVID, or they disappeared due to the industrial modernization, and now we need to see how we can recover and build again these capacities, these industrial capabilities, in order to allow a proper functional of the value chain. Also, our clusters experience development of research and innovation projects in the benefit of their members. It has been a successful scheme for implementation in this programming period. We are going to continue this. And like I said, we want to encourage internationalization and networking of the clusters, and we want to see them more active in international projects, in international networks. Another intervention, of course, is focused on digitalization of SMEs, and here we have identified not only the need for investing in SMEs to adopt digital technologies and instruments, cybersecurity solutions, but also we had identified as interest for investments that are addressing smart city and smart village solutions. And we see the digital innovation hubs establishment at regional level as important door to this digital transition, because they are going to act as one-stop shops to support not only the companies but also the local public administration that want to adopt digital solutions. Next, please. The SMEs competitiveness, which has more than 1 year of life, are going to be encouraged to invest more in technological development. And of course, this is an instrument that is very good and desired by the companies. As we speak, we have under assessment and contracting around 450 projects in our regional operational program. But in the future, we are going to focus more on this technological uptake. And also, a new entry for the regional operational program is investing in circular economy solutions, allowing to the company to implement the solution. It is a new initiative in Romania. It has been focused mainly on circular economy from the public authorities perspective and the integrated management, but now we are looking to investment in companies for circular economy. And of course, there is a need, like I said, to build up capacity for administrate the smart specialization strategy, and we are looking to the skills of the members of the entrepreneurial discovery process micro ecosystem. And we designed some interventions that are tailored to the needs, specific needs of enterprises, for researchers, but also for the technological transfer entities. Also, one need that appeared is how to prepare good quality projects for research and innovation. And our proposal is to establish one-stop shop at regional level, capable to offer services that help the promoter to set the right financing mix for the project and to cooperate with the eligibility criteria of funding programs. And last but not least is regional capacity to monitor and evaluate the smart specialization strategy, which of course remains a challenge for all the entities that coordinate the smart specialization strategy. Just one comment I want to add. In 2019, our region hosted the European Week of Innovative Regions, and as part of the program of that conference, we have initiated development of the first digital innovation hub of the region. And since then, around the group of founders, the cause of innovative enterprises, and then enlarged with the specialized faculties, chambers of commerce, and clusters in the IT area, we have established in May this year the Digital Innovation Zone Northeast. This digital innovation hub is already has already submitted a proposal to the national government to become European Digital Innovation Hub. And I will stop here, I think.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Now you can, yes. Thank you. There was an echo during your speeches just at the last moment. I saw it quite late. Thank you, Vasco, for telling me that you had two sessions open at the same time, and that was the origin of the echo. So we are out of time, sorry, because we will not have many time to, yeah, there is somebody making noise also. There is no time for open dialogue. Sorry for that. It has been very interesting. I need to say again, we are open to collaborate. We, as the European Cluster Alliance, I know that there are a lot of colleagues here hearing you, and we need to be more proactive and to work on facing all those challenges that we have seen today, challenges and opportunities. So please know that we are better prepared now, better organized. We have a federation at the European level. We have national organizations, strong national organizations, and we want to participate more actively in the next year's policies development. So just for closing, would you comment, Marek? I am sure that you have some last word for us.
Yes, thank you very much. So, of course, this is a huge area of SMEs. Just let me emphasize 3 points for priorities that we had already in the regional policy and as well here in SMEs, and then the role of clusters for this. First is the creation of new firms, startups, growth of startups and scale-ups. And I think the presentation from Northeast was very much indicating how they think in region. The main thing will be how clusters can fit into creation of new SMEs. And I think among clusters there's lots of potential and ideas. What new spin-offs, creation, mergers could evolve, and accelerators, incubators can definitely help for this. The second, entrepreneurial ecosystem. So this creation, I'm very happy that Northeast is going in this, and entrepreneurial ecosystem without active role of clusters is not existing. So this is obvious, particularly to link SMEs and universities, research centers together. so that we create new companies, but based on knowledge with value added, not any companies, but companies where you really create value, and you can direct public support into the areas where you will create value at more value added at the territory. And then the final access to finance and advanced business services for SMEs, and the role of clusters in particularly providing the advanced business services, and as well as we discussed, like incorporating in clusters the role of financial intermediaries, so that the clusters incorporate as well this financial dimension, which we still lacked, plus skills training, vocational dimension. I think these three areas of priorities for ERDF that we are mentioning, I think in each of them, clusters are very well positioned to play a role and use the ERDF money for the implementation of smart specialization strategies. Thank you very much again for fantastic presentations. Thanks a lot.
You are very welcome, Marek, and we will close because it's time. But you are invited to join us again tomorrow. We will speak about skills and how are they related with the new S3 or S4, as Mikel and Avaso told us today, strategies. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye-bye.